All right, come on, man. All right, come on. Chrome is acting so stupid. All right, here we go. We should be live at this moment. All right. Just see here sometimes. Why do you do these things? Stupid, stupid Chrome. Get out of here. All right. Shalom, everyone. We're back. I'm Brother Doug with my mom, Sister Sharon, and Sister Shoshana. Brother Dennis and Brother Yahusha's with us, and we also have a sister visiting with us today. Sister Christy's on from Shoshana's line. So what we're going to do is we're going to do a new reader here. Let's see here. Sister Shoshana, would you like to read chapter 1?
She's in the restroom right now.
Okay. Okay. Brother Dennis, would you like to read chapter 1 for us? Brother Dennis, you there?
Okay, can you hear me now?
Yeah.
Oh, what chapter 1, Samuel?
Yeah. 1 Samuel chapter 1, yep.
Okay. Yeah. Okay, let's see. And there was a certain man of Ramathaim, Zophim, of the mountains of Ephraim, and his name was Elkanah, son of Jeroham, son of Elihu, son of Tahu, son of Zuph, an Ephraimite. And he had 2 wives. The name of one was Hannah, and the name of the other Peninnah. And Peninnah had children, but Hannah had no children. Now this man went up from his city year by year to worship and to slaughter to Yahweh of hosts in Shiloh. And the 2 sons of Eli, Hophni and Phinehas, the priests of Yahweh, were there. And when the day came for Elkanah to make an offering, he gave portions to Peninnah, his wife, and to all her sons and daughters. But although he loved Hannah, he gave only 1 portion to Hannah because Yahweh had shut up her womb. Moreover, her rival also provoked her greatly to make her irritable because Yahweh had shut up her womb. And so he did year by year. Whenever she went up to the house of Yahuwah, she was provoked, so that she wept and did not eat. And her husband Elkanah said to her, Hannah, why do you weep? Why do you not eat? And why is your heart sad? Am I not better to you than 10 sons? Hannah rose up after eating and drinking in Shiloh, while Eli the priest was sitting on the seat by the doorpost of the Hekel of Yahuwah temple. And she was bitter in life and prayed to Yahuwah and wept greatly. And she made a vow and said, O Yahuwah of hosts, if you would indeed look on the affliction of your female servant, and remember me, and not forget your female servant, but shall give your female servant a male child, then I shall give him to Yahuwah all the days of his life, and let no razor come upon his head. And it came to be, as she kept on praying before Yahuwah, that Eli was watching her mouth. And Hannah spoke in her heart, only her lips moved, but her voice was not heard. So Eli thought she was drunk. Then Eli said to her, How long are you going to be drunk? Put your wine away from you. And Hannah answered and said, No, my master, I am a woman pained in spirit, and I have drunk neither wine nor strong drink, but have poured out my being before Yahuwah. Do not take your female servant for a daughter of Belial, for it is out of my great concern and provocation that I have spoken until now. And Eli answered and said, Go in peace, and the Elohim of Yisrael give you your petition which you have asked for him of him. She said, Let your female servant find favor in your eyes. And the woman went her way and ate, and her face was more sad. And they rose up early in the morning and worshipped before Yahuwah, and returned and came to their house in Ramah. And Elkanah knew Hannah, his wife, and Yahuwah remembered her. And it came to be at the turn of days that Hannah conceived and bore a son, and called his name Samuel, because I have asked Yahuwah for him. And the man Elkanah and all his house went up to offer to Yahuwah the yearly slaughtering and his vow. But Hannah did not go up, for she said to her husband, When the child is weaned, then I shall take him, and he shall appear before Yahuwah and remain forever there. And her husband Elkanah said to her, Do what is true in your eyes. Remain until you have weaned him, only let Yahuwah establish his word. And the woman remained and nursed her son until he had weaned him. And when she had weaned him, she took him up with her with 3 bulls and 1 ephah of flour and a skin of wine, and brought him to the house of Yahuwah in Shiloh, and the child was young. And they slaughtered a bull and brought the child to Eli. And she said, O my master, as your being lives, my master, I am the woman who stood by you here praying to Yahuwah. I prayed for this youth, and Yahuwah has granted me what I asked of him. So I have also loaned him to Yahuwah. All the days that he lives, he shall be loaned to Yahuwah, and he worshiped there before Yahuwah. That's kind of predestined.
Great job reading, bro. So what I noticed here was pretty interesting was it's kind of funny how Yahuwah is kind of leading our conversation off record just before, and now we're getting into a chapter about this. So yeah, for all the sisters out there, that you might feel bad about why you can't have children, all that. Just always remember there's always different purposes for that. Sometimes Yahuwah wants you to set apart your child to him, or sometimes he just, he allows you to be barren for a purpose. And so it's not always a bad thing, or you shouldn't feel in your heart like, well, I'm sinning, this is why. I don't want you ever to feel that way. Sometimes, I mean, don't get me wrong, there can be times where Yahuwah does do that, but generally speaking, it's not always the case. So it seems like here Yahuwah, or I could say Yahusha, before he took on flesh here, is actually the one that wanted her to make a vow to him, to dedicate him to Yahuwah, her child. And I believe this would be Samuel.
Samuel, yeah.
So Samuel was a Nazarite. Okay. So then the reason I say Yahusha here is because you have here this title that I believe is the exclusive title to Yahusha before he took on flesh here. You have Yahuwah Elohim, or Alua of Sabayut, which basically in English that would be Yahuwah Alua of heaven's armies. So
Right.
we know that Yahusha in Revelations He's the commander. All armies go behind him, including Michael. He is the commander. We see this, and also just to give you another witness here, because I know people will say, Doug, you're kind of reaching here. I'm going to just show you something here in the book of Joshua, chapter 5. Okay, this is another instance of this, of who Yahusha, son of Nun, actually encountered here. So let's see here where it talks about it here. Trumpets. I forget how far down here he talks about the commander. Maybe it was chapter. Okay, I might have been on the wrong chapter there. Okay. Here we go. Starting at verse 13 of the book of Joshua here, it says, "And it came to pass when Yahusha was in Jericho, he looked up with his eyes, saw a man standing before him, and was drawn a sword in his hand. And Yahusha drew near and said to him, Are you for us or on the side of our enemies? And he said to him, I am now come, the chief captain," meaning, the archon, the chief captain of the army of Yahuwah. And Yahusha fell on his face to the earth and said to him, Master, what do you command your servant? And the captain of Yahuwah's army said to Yahusha, Loose your shoe off your feet, for the place where you now stand is Kadash, set apart. Now, where else do we see this phrase? Exodus chapter 3, where Malach Yahuwah, the messenger of Yahuwah, aka Yahusha, pre-incarnate, tells Masha, loose that sandal off your foot, where you stand is set apart ground. So always pay attention to phrases like that, because Yahuwah is not the author of confusion. He's really trying to make it simple for us to understand, where Yahusha is in the Tanakh. So really, she's making a vow to Yahusha here, going back to 1 Samuel here in verse 11. She's saying, she vowed a vow to Yahuwah, saying, Oh, Yahuwah, Alua, Sabaoth, if you will indeed look upon the humiliation of your handmaid, and remember me, and give to your handmaid a it's interesting, the Greek says man-child. Interesting. Then will I indeed dedicate him to you till the day of his death. He shall drink no wine, nor strong drink, and no razor shall come upon his head. And obviously, we already talked about that is an indication of the Nazirite vow. That in a Nazirite vow, I believe, what is mom, number 6? Either numbers 5 or number 6 gives you the whole lowdown on the Nazirite vow, what you can do, what you can't do when you take this vow of free will for yourself. Now, in this case, she's vowing her son to be one. So her son technically doesn't have the choice. This is from birth. He's a Nazirite. So this is similar to, what's the other guy? Samson, right? He was set apart as a Nazirite from birth. John, I'm not too sure if he took a Nazirite vow. He would have just been, mom, like a priest. So there's similarities between priests and
I thought he was born into that.
No. You unless I can find somewhere where his dad and his mother consecrated him as a Nazirite, I would have to look that up. What I do know though, mom, is where it gets confusing is certain restrictions in the Levitical priesthood are similar to.
All right.
That's where people get confused because, like, for example, right, if they go into the temple, they can't drink wine or strong drink when they're doing service. So that's where it gets a little confusing. And the Levites also, if I'm not mistaken, they can't put a razor upon their head and doing stuff like that. Even though the context is for the dead, I don't think Levites would ever take a razor upon their head and all that, and stuff like that. But there is similarities, I will say that, to the Levitical priesthood and the Nazirite vow. There's similarities. As far as I know, he never took a Nazirite vow. As far as I know, I could be wrong, but I don't think he was ever consecrated to Yahuwah to be a Nazirite from birth. I do know that Samuel obviously is here, And Samson, I believe, also had that same thing. That's why he was given the strength. That's why Yahuwah supernaturally gave him strength that was connected to his hair not being cut and all that. So, just trying to see here. Obviously, for some reason, this priest thought she was drunk. I guess because she was like wailing and crying uncontrollably, maybe, or
I think it was because she was praying silently, and all he saw was her mouth moving.
Mm-hmm.
Oh,
So it looked like she was like drunk, stammering, stuttering, like.
Right.
Sure. I wanted to go back and touch on people not being able to have children real quick. Just from other people in this walk and their experiences, sometimes it's that there are things that are fighting against you to keep you from being able to have children, and there's warfare that's required. There's fasting and prayer that's needed on your part. How for whatever reason, whether that's sin in your life, whether that's whatever it is. I've seen people that were not able to have children, and then they went on to the offensive, and they went into warfare, and they started. They realized that there were spirits that were fighting against them, and through prayer and fasting, those spirits, possibly curses as well, were broken off, and they were able to have children after that.
Interesting.
I want to say Watchman of Yahuwah, but that I think I'm wrong on that. I know people within Yashua following Yahuwah and Yahusha have testimonies of this, but who it is not coming to mind at the moment.
Yeah, that's interesting. Let's see here. So again, this compound name is mentioned here. Again, it's saying in verse 20, and because when time came, she brought forth a son, she called his name Samuel, saying, because I asked him of Yahuwah Alua of Sabaoth, which again is a compound name that means Yahuwah Alua of heaven's armies, the angel armies. So we see that this is a compound name, and I just laugh when people say to me, Yahusha's not in the Tanakh. Okay. He's all over there if you knew his names. You got Yahuwah of armies, you got Yahuwah Elohim compound name, you got the hand, the outstretched arm, wisdom. I could name about like 20 compound names or titles that he's known by before he took on flesh. So a lot of people are just not, and I'm trying to be as humble, say this as humble as I can, are just not educated correctly about where he is in the Tanakh. He's everywhere. Matter of fact, this is like, if you start realizing where he is in the Tanakh, I guarantee you're already going to be, I'm just joking around here, on the gateway drug to become a oneness person like us. You're already going to have to, because she said she dedicated him to Yahuwah, but she's calling him Yahuwah Elohim of heaven's armies. So you see that it's to them, to the Abri people, Yahuwah of heaven's armies is the same person as the Father. So they're not distinguishing. So you'll see it's almost like once you realize where Yahusha is with all these different titles and names in the Tanakh, the oneness thing is going to become much more clear to you. It's going to become much more clear, because it gets kind of fuzzy, like we talked about before with the different New Testament manuscripts, and that gets kind of tricky with that. But when you look at the Tanakh, it's everywhere. It's everywhere. So and again, the Brit Hadashah can't give you a new message than than the Tanakh. So the Tanakh showing you that this person who is Yahusha is the same person as the Father. The New Testament can't give you a different message. So that's just something for you, all the audience out there, to test for yourselves out there. Just putting it out there. Definitely start looking for Yahusha's name as Yahuwah of armies, or Yahuwah Alua of armies, as it is here in the Septuagint, which is kind of interesting because usually the Masoretic will only say Yahuwah of armies, but this is actually saying that he is the mighty one of the armies, with Theos being after the Kurios there, that would indicate that he is the mighty one, the one that they worship, the one that the armies of heaven worship. So that's pretty interesting in my opinion. And actually that goes back to the whole topic of the messianic prophecies and the Septuagint. And I think there's a verse in Deuteronomy 32 that the Masoretics leave out that actually talks about this concept. Just going to pull it up real quick in Deuteronomy 32. This is a verse that I think they leave out. I think it's 32 verse 33, I believe, where Paul quotes from in the book of Hebrews. Or no, my bad. It's further down. Verse 43. Sorry, guys. I don't know why I keep misquoting these things. I need to really write this one down. All right, let me get my notebook real quick, because this is a good one here. This is where Paul quotes from in the book of Hebrews, where he says concerning Yahusha, let all the angels worship him, right? You know that verse in Hebrews? Yeah, this is where he's getting it from in the LXX. It says, rejoice, you heavens, with him, and let all the angels of Alua worship him. Now, according to Paul, the him is Yahusha. And you can pull that up in, I believe it's Hebrews 1:6, I believe. Let me just look that up real quick. Let all the messengers. So these celestial messengers, these Malachim, as the Hebrew language calls them, Paul is identifying the him from Deuteronomy 32:43 as Yahusha. Yeah, Hebrews 1:6. It is 1:6, okay. So it says, when Alua brings his firstborn into the world, or depending on your translation, might say, no, it probably says firstborn. Yeah, I think in every version. He says, let all Alua's messengers worship him. And oh, this is good. The Bible app actually lets you know it's a cross reference from Deuteronomy 32:43. I'm actually glad they do that. So it says here, this phrase is a prophecy from the Tanakh, Old Testament, possibly from Psalms. So yeah, unfortunately, they don't realize that it's also from Deuteronomy 32:43 directly, but the Masoretes took that out. So again, so it says, let all the messengers worship him. So anyway, so just thought that was interesting to include there. So that's Hebrews 1:6 paired with Deuteronomy 32:43 in the LXX. So just wanted to see something really quick. I'm curious if there's other witnesses to this. I'm just curious. Nah, they already took it out at that point. Okay. So yeah, that phrase has only survived in Deuteronomy 32, the Septuagint, it looks like. Interesting. So let's see, who hasn't had a chance to read yet? here. Brother Yahusha, would you like to read chapter 2? Or let me see. Let's see. Brother Yahusha, you there?
Yeah, can you hear me?
Yeah, now I can.
All right, chapter 2. My heart was strengthened by Yahweh, by my Aluah. My horn was exalted. Over my enemies, my mouth was enlarged. I was made glad by your salvation. Because there is none separated like Yahweh, and none is righteous like our Aluah. There is none Kadush besides you. Boast not, nor speak haughtily. Let not arrogance proceed from your mouth, because Yahweh is an Aluah of all knowledge, an Aluah who prepares his own designs. The bow of the mighty he hath made weak, and the weak he has girded themselves with strength. Oh, and the weak have girded themselves with strength. They who are, let me change this. They that were full of bread are brought low, and the hungry have forsaken the land. For the barren have borne 7, and she, interesting. They that were full of bread are brought low, and the hungry have forsaken the land. For the barren have borne 7, and she that abounded in children has grown feeble. Yahweh kills and makes alive. He brings down to the grave and brings up. Yahweh makes poor and makes rich. He brings low and lifts up. He lifts up the poor from the earth and raises the needy from the dunghill, to seat him with the princes of the people and causing them to inherit the throne of esteem, granting his petition to him that prays, and he barooks the years of the righteous. For by strength cannot man prevail. Yahweh will weaken his adversary. Yahweh is Kadash. Let not the wise man boast in his wisdom, nor let the mighty man boast in his strength, and let not the rich man boast in his wealth. But let him that boasts boast in this, to understand and know Yahweh, and to execute judgment and justice in the midst of the earth. Yahweh has gone up to Shamim and has thundered. He will judge the extremities of the earth, and he gives strength to our kings, and will exalt the horn of his Mashiach. And she left him there before Yahweh, and departed to Ramathaim. And the child ministered in the presence of Yahweh before Ali the Kahun. And the sons of Ali the Kahun were evil sons, not knowing Yahweh. And the Kahanim claim from every one of the people that offered was this: the servant of the Kahun came when the flesh was in seething, and a flesh hook of 3 teeth was in his hand, and he struck it into the great cauldron, or into the bronze vessel, or into the pot, and whatever came up with the flesh hook, the Kahun took for himself. So they did to all Yashrael that came to offer to Yahweh in Shiloh. And before the fat was burnt for a sweet savor, the servant of the Kahun would come and say to the man that offered, "Give flesh to roast for the Kahun, and I will by no means take from you boiled flesh out of the cauldron." And if the man that offered said, "First let the fat be burned as it is fat, and take for yourself of all the things which your soul desires," then he would say, "No, but you shall give it to me now, and if not, I will take it by force." So the sin of the young men was very great before Yahweh, for they despised the offering of Yahweh. And Shamuel ministered before Yahweh, a child wearing a linen ephod, and his mother made him a little robe. and brought it to him from year to year, and her going up in company with her husband to offer the yearly offering. And Ali baruched Elkanah and his wife, saying, Yahweh recompense to you descendants from this woman in return for the loan which you have lent to Yahweh. And the man returned to his place, and Yahweh visited Anna, and she bore yet 3 sons and 2 daughters, and the child Shemuel grew before Yahweh. And Ali was very old, and he heard what his sons did to the children of Yashral. And he said to them, Why do you do such things, which I hear from the mouth of all the people of Yahweh? No, my sons, for the report which I hear is not tube. Do not so. For the reports which I hear are not tube, so the people do not serve Yahweh. If a man should at all sin against another, then shall they pray for him to Yahweh. But if a man sin against Yahweh, who shall intercede for him? But they hearkened not to the voice of their father, because Yahweh would by all means destroy them. And the child Shemuel advanced and was in favor with Yahweh and with men. And a man of Yahweh came to Ali and said, Thus says Yahweh, I plainly revealed myself to the house of your father when they were servants in Mitzrayim, the house of Pharaoh. And I chose the house of your father out of all the tribes of Yashral to minister to me in the Kohanim's office, to go up to my altar, and to burn incense, and to wear an ephod. And I gave to the house of your father all the offerings by fire of the children of Yashral for food. Therefore, why have you looked upon my incense offering and my grain offering with a shameless eye, and have honored your sons above me, so that they should baruch themselves with the first fruits of every offering of Yashral before me? Therefore, thus says Yahweh Eloah of Yashral, I said, Your house and the house of your father shall pass before me forever. But now Yahweh says, Far be it from me, for I will only honor them that honor me, and he that despises me shall be despised. Behold, the days come when I will destroy your seed and the seed of your father's house, and you shall not have an old man in my house forever. And if I do not destroy a man of yours from my altar, that his eyes may fail and his soul may perish, and every one that remains in your house shall fall by the sword of men. And this which shall come upon your 2 sons, Hophni and Phinehas, shall be assigned to you, and one day they shall both die. And I will raise up to myself a faithful priest who shall do all that is in my heart and in my soul, and I will build him a sure house, and he shall walk before my Mashiach forever. And it shall come to pass that he that serves in your house will come and bow down before him for a little piece of silver, saying, Put me into one of your Kohanim's office to eat bread. Praise you, Lord. One thing that I've noticed, and just interesting, I'm not drawing anything or saying anything, is just something interesting that I've noticed. Don't know quite what to make of it, if anything, but one thing is that even aside from the offerings, the only way that I see meat being cooked, when it actually tells you, like, it gives an example of it being cooked, aside from the Pesach lamb being roasted, it seems like Yashral is always boiling their meat, whether it's for eating or whether it's for offering. Just something I've noticed.
Yeah. Uh, I think this is just a theory about that, what you just mentioned, bro. It might have to do with health reasons. I could see, especially, definitely don't want to fry everything like we do today. I don't think they were doing that back then. That's why they were probably a lot healthier than us. Um, they were not cooking everything in olive oil or even the healthy oils. They were not frying everything back then. I think it might have to do with health. Um, just to spitball in here. Um, it I know even when you boil an egg versus frying an egg, you're like it's 10 times healthier. And actually, what is it, Mom? Science has proved that
Well, what it
eating a
is,
boiled egg, like the amount of little calories that's in that, you're burning more of it just by digesting it.
so it's kind of like you're in the minus when you eat a
Yeah.
hard-boiled egg because it takes more for you to digest it than it actually of the calories that are in that egg. So yeah, I learned that at Weight Watchers. But
Yeah.
there are foods like that. There was another one just the other day I heard about, and I can't remember
Yeah.
what it was. But
Like I think just our society today, in my opinion, has an
Oh, yeah.
obsession
yeah,
with frying everything.
yeah,
Whether regular frying, deep frying, we fry like too many things. And
hmm
it's kind of ridiculous.
I
But
know with like olive oil, when you cook olive oil, like to the point, like if you're frying food with olive oil, the the structure and the well anything when you heat it up, the structure, genetic structure changes. But with olive oil, because it has such a low boiling temperature or whatever, however you
Right.
want to say that,
Yeah.
it's unhealthy it's not an oil that you really want to be cooking with. It's an oil that you want to use in its raw form. There are oils that are healthier to use in a in a like cooking, like butter or ghee, coconut oil, avocado oil, but olive oil is not one of them. That's more of a raw, put it in your salad type
Yeah,
deal.
yeah, definitely.
yeah, dump your bread into, yeah.
Yeah.
Like even the Italians, us the Romans, we know we're not supposed to be doing it that way. We know we're supposed to be only using it cold. Even in Italy, they do that. So, you know, they back in the day, they would have never really used that to cook with, even in Europe. That kind of just we got Americanized with that nonsense. They back then they would have never used it as a cooking oil like that. That's more of an American Italian type of thing. You go to like Rome or Italy, they're not really doing that. There, yeah. So, yeah, I agree. Um, like if I usually like doing butter, like Brother Yahusha says, or even if I do like a high heat frying, it's usually like what's that one seed oil we use, the
Grapeseed.
grapeseed. That's probably the
Mhm.
only one that I'll use for like a high heat frying
Mhm.
out of the oils. All the rest of them are very harmful. Like you really get into the bad ones when you're talking about peanut or any of like the very high, very extremely fattening and just not natural the way they make them. Vegetable oils are probably the worst because they're hydrogenated.
Uh-huh.
But there's a lot of them you want to avoid out there. But yeah, I think back then it'd be interesting to talk to a Jewish person to ask them like traditionally what their family does with how much frying they actually do versus boiling stuff like that. I think there's definitely a purpose for why they would boil meat like that. There was definitely a purpose. We might not just realize it, but there might be a purpose behind that. Um, it might be healthier because we even see, to Brother Yahusha's point, not just the offerings, but Exodus 16. Yahuwah says, "Boil what you may boil, bake what you may bake, before the Sabbath comes." So you see, like boiling was like a big thing for them. Like they did it for regular food, for offerings. Most of the time they were boiling meat. They weren't really. I mean, they would roast for the Passover and roast for certain things,
Mhm.
but especially frying meat, I don't know how
Yeah.
often that culture did that.
No, they put them on a spit
So
and bar, and like.
so that's more of an Americanized thing. Like you fry ground
Yeah,
beef, you fry
true.
this, you fry a steak. You know, even with steaks, they say it tastes 10 times better when you barbecue it or
Yeah.
you know it's just we've become a very a high frying society, which is very bad, and that's why we probably have health issues in this country. Um,
Mhm.
Even with healthy oils, frying all the time is not good. Like science has even proven that fry all the time it's not good. You're that's probably not the way who made us was to he didn't make us to ingest everything fried and stuff like that.
If I do put something on the stove, it's at a very, very low temperature. I've noticed that like I see like when people like cook eggs, like fried eggs, for instance, they'll put it on a high temperature. Like I'll put it at as low as it can get and then put a covering on it, like have like a little pan and then have like the top on it, cover it, put it as low as it can get and let it like, just sit there for like 10, 15 minutes.
Yeah, eggs. Yeah, you're really not supposed to like heavy temperature fry eggs. What you're doing is like what you're supposed to do. No, number one, you're gonna burn it like really quickly. If you don't, I know from experience, like when I fry eggs, if I don't put it on a very low gauge, it's gonna get burnt like within 10 minutes. So yeah. But anyway, yeah, I just think that could be one of the reasons the Hebrews did that. They boiled a lot of their meat just for health reasons. Um, you know, so, and I think early on in this country they were doing that too a lot, right? Like probably back in the day, people would boil chicken or turkey or whatever. I don't think
I think braising actually
Braising?
would be a lot better,
okay.
rather than boiling. But
But
for
like
taste.
for example, like we've gotten so crazy in this country, people are frying turkeys,
Yeah, it's nuts.
deep
I'm
frying
sorry.
turkeys. Like
I don't even
know how
think they
unhealthy
taste good like that.
that is extremely unhealthy. Those deep fryer machines that people just dump the turkey into and
Yeah.
it deep fries it, that cannot be healthy. So like
No.
we're a society
Yeah.
of frying too many stuff.
What'd you say? Depends on
Yeah.
the oil.
Yeah. I think just oil in general, like even if it's a healthy oil, I think who did not make us to ingest so much oil.
No, I don't think so.
No.
Like so that's our problem too, is we're over oiling our food. And even with good oils that, too much of anything's a bad thing. It's kind of my point. Yeah. But anyway, I think that's it for today, right? So that was First and Second Samuel. Let me just see if there was something. What really stood out to me was a title that they gave Yahuwah here, in chapter 2, when Brother Yahusha was reading. I noticed it said what he is a Lua of knowledge. And he prepares his own designs. What do I think that means? It means that he is the sole creator. That's how I would take that. He prepares his own designs, like there's nothing in this creation outside of his will, like meaning like the whole creation Yahuwah has made now. So that's kind of what I took from that. Also, I know a lot of Gnostics out there don't like this, but it says it right here, Yahuwah, there's no one as righteous as Yahuwah. In verse 2 there. A lot of people want to say, oh, how can he be all good and all powerful and all these Gnostics and New Agers? He just is. He just is. He's perfect. We're not. We're born into sin. We're not perfect. We as true children of the Most High, we try to emulate him and follow in his footsteps and follow his his example, but we will never be like Yahuwah as far as
That's right.
perfection goes, as far as that he is a perfect being. He is completely without sin. That's the difference between us and our creator.
Yeah.
But once
So
we're spiritual, I think we will be without sin because
yeah,
sin is physical.
yeah, like what I mean by that is like we won't be without sin until the kingdom comes. Like as far as right now, our earthly mortal existence, we are not ever going to be completely without sin. Like even if you stop physically sinning, you're always going to have sinful thoughts coming. As long as we have this sinful flesh that we're born into,
Yeah.
there's always going to be,
Yeah.
sinful thoughts coming in, our flesh wanting us to sin. So as far as having 100% pure heart, 110% pure heart, never having a sinful thought coming in, that is not going to happen, I don't believe, what scripture shows until the resurrection. Until that
Right.
happens,
Agree.
that's all I'm trying to say. So people that want to say, well, people just have a problem with that Yahuwah, his ways are high above our ways, and there's certain things that he is that in this fleshy existence we will never be. We will always come up short. That's why Paul says, if you're trying to justify yourself by your own physical works, no flesh can be saved by that, because even when we're trying our best to obey him, we mess up. Every day we mess up. That little mess up causes us to fall short every time. So, that's why Paul was saying what he was saying in his letters. Okay, you can't be saved by your works. You have to be saved by what he did for us at the stake. His shedding his blood for us. That's what gives salvation. You, me, I, all of us, we could live the most righteous, and we are supposed to. We are supposed to trust in what he did for us and live like he lived. That's the goal. But we also can't fool ourselves and think that we are going to be just like him in this life, and that we can be completely without sin. First John even talks about that. Anyone that says you think you're completely without sin, you deceive yourself. Even as obedient as we possibly can, there's always going to be that one mess up. There's always going to be that one falling short action that causes, and James talks about it too. You mess up once, you break the whole law.
Yeah.
So anyone that wants to be justified by works, it's impossible, because the one mess up you make, you broke the whole law. The law is a complete package. So that's what we don't understand. That's the difference between us.
It would be good.
That's the difference between the true Abri faith and all these other religions, these man-made religions, because man-made religions is based on works. They think they can, what they do, their good deeds outweigh their bad deeds. Somehow that's going to get them in heaven. And a lot of these religions believe that, whether it's the Freemasons, I don't know exactly what the Gnostics believe. They probably just believe that they're gods. So whatever. But the Catholics are a works based. There's so many different religions that are works based. Judaism, to a certain extent, is work based. They think by just, basically they believe that they don't need atonement. They don't need forgiveness of their sins. They can just kind of just do their works and get into heaven because they're keeping the Sabbath every week. Or, well, they don't even believe in heaven. Never mind. Some Jews might believe in heaven, but most of them will say they don't believe in like a eternal judgment or anything. But yeah, so hopefully you see what I'm saying with that. So that's what I mean by like, that really stuck out to me in 1 Samuel 2 verse 1, where it says, "For there is none as Kadash as Yahuwah, and there is none righteous as our Elohim." We can live righteously, but we'll never be as righteous as Yahuwah in this existence. Never will happen. We will never be perfect like him. And I think that's the point. The point is to in obeying the Torah is to do it out of the love he had for us. We are to show him that we really love him, and that the obedience in Torah is the fruit. When he talks about, I chose you to bear fruit. So the obedience to Torah should come naturally if we love him. That should be natural. That should be a byproduct of a genuine conversion. So that's what I was kind of pointing at there. But that kind of stuck out to me, that none are as righteous as Yahuwah. I know you had your hand up, Mom.
That's
Go
okay,
ahead.
honey. I just wanted to say, this might seem very obvious, but I was just sitting here thinking, as we were going through this reading, the fact that, you know, Eli did not have any, his sons were terrible, you know. It must have been awful to have the town coming and reporting to you about how horrible your kids are. So there was nobody he could put in the temple, you know, from his family, from his line. And you know, it's just neat to see the father's plan. He came up with a very suitable candidate in Samuel. So it's just neat, I think, to see the father's plan of how, you know, I mean, usually it would be the sons or whatever that would follow the priestly father into the temple, but this was not possible. So, you know, so the father made a plan. He you know, he rose up Samuel, and you know, I just think that that's interesting.
Yeah, so sisters just messaged me basically wanting me to clarify. Yes, so when I mean that we will never be without sin, I was talking about in the context, and I'm glad Sister Shoshana wanted me to clarify that. So when I mean that as far as this existence here on this present earth, as far as we are immortal, born into sin, fleshy bodies, we will never be without sin, and Scripture supports that. When we have a resurrection, it's different because we have new bodies. We don't have the fall anymore. There's no longer the fall. There's no longer our flesh. You know, it's not just Satan. See, that's what I used to believe in Christianity, that Satan is the only one that puts these thoughts in our heads. Our own flesh does that too, because our flesh, in a weird way, our sinful flesh that's in our bodies, it has almost the same mind as Satan. It's like naturally wants to rebel. This is why Paul says, who is going to deliver me from this body? Paul's basically like frustrated. He's like, man, every time I do what I don't want to do, and what I want to do, I can't do for some reason, because the new man that's created him in Messiah is fighting with the old man. Like people, this is a wrong idea that we get from the church, is the idea that once we become a new creation, 2 Corinthians 5:17, that means the old man is completely dead and we don't fight the flesh anymore. No, we still got to fight the flesh. And I believe that's very deceptive to believe that, because your flesh is still there. You still have indwelling sin in you. Just because you're a new creation doesn't mean like the battle's over. You're still fighting your flesh. Paul
mentioned that, just thorn in the side.
So what I mean by like we will never be completely without sin in this present existence is because of our bodies. Now, once we are freed from these sinful bodies in the resurrection, we have new heavenly bodies. Yes, we will be completely without sin because we've been resurrected. That's the main reason. Because basically that's the way Yahuwah intended it. He created us to be basically to only have righteous thoughts and righteous ways. He did not create us to even know about evil. The only reason we know about evil and know about sin is because Adam and Kua, our physical ancestors, Adam and Eve, ate of the tree. That exposed them to knowing about sin. So now you know about sin, you're going to cause sin because you know about it. You think about it this way, they didn't eat of the tree. If they didn't do that, hypothetically speaking, they wouldn't know about sin. If you don't know about sin, you're not going to do sin. They were exposed to the knowledge of sin, and that knowledge of sin caused them to sin. So that created a whole ripple effect. That's been happening since the fall. And if you look at Paul's own words in Romans, he talks about since the sin increased, law increased, the Torah increased because sin increased. Before sin, they only had one commandment, right? So now that sin entered, the law had to become bigger and bigger and bigger because sin kept increasing. So the law kept increasing. So that's all I'm trying to say. So I don't want people mistaking what I'm saying, that I mean for like eternity of eternities. And I apologize for misspeaking about that. So I apologize for that. So what I should have said was, to be more specific, is on this present existence before his second coming. As far as from now till his second coming, we won't ever, as mortal humans, ever be completely without sin. Now we can be as close to being without sin as possible, and that's kind of the point, is to, like I said, Yahusha is the measuring stick. We're supposed to, emulate what he did. He said, I gave you examples. So he is our example. We are supposed to live our lives like him to the best of our ability, each and every day. So anyway, go ahead, Brother Yahusha.
Lost my train of thought. If I remember, I'll come back to it. Oh, okay. So now I remember. Can y'all hear me?
Yep.
Yeah.
Okay, so this what you're saying is actually very. When you look into the actual Greek, you can see that, that it's not like, okay, we just we receive our we're made a new creation, and then boom, that's it. When you're translating into the when you really lose a lot when it's translated into the English, but like when you actually look not necessarily into the Greek wording itself, but into like the what's the hold on, let me go to my translation that really helps is the a faithful version that you can download in MySword. It allows you to look at the like the part of speech that a word is, like what like let's say if I click on James 1:1 says, James, a servant of Yahuwah, right? It has the G1401 for servant, but then underneath it, it shows you the part of the speech. So it says part of speech, noun, and then the case is nominative, the number is singular. Like for instance, one verse that comes to mind that really loses its meaning when you translate it into English is be you transformed by the renewing of your mind. That word for transformed, it is a I forget exactly how it describes it, but basically it's a continuative hold on, let me see if I can actually go to it. Where's that verse? Be transformed. Where's it at?
Romans 12:2, I believe.
Romans 12:2. To that. Romans 12:2. So, yeah, exactly. So that word for transformed, the tense is a present tense, meaning it says present is a verb tense form, which a speaker uses to describe an action as imperfect and is often used to depict an action as being in process. I think we talked about this in the prayer meeting, actually. So it means it's like something that is continuing. It's like, it's not just, okay, you're transformed, boom, it's done. It's like you're continually being transformed, is what the Greek is saying. You're continually being renewed, which it perfectly lines up when Yahusha, when the word says, he gives us power to become sons and daughters. And then with the word that says, he who endures to the end, if you've already been made a new creation, then you have your flesh is now perfect, then there's no need to endure to the end. So a lot of these times when we see the Greek, it just seems like it's a word that is like, okay, boom, it's happened already, it's done. Like when you really look into what it should actually be worded as, it's something that's more like, okay, it's something that's happening rather than something that's happened. If I explained that correctly, if that makes any sense.
Yep, that's 100% correct, bro. And let me just show the version you were talking about, just for people that do have My Sword, how easy it is to get. It's actually on the app. It's actually like you don't even have to download it outside of the app. You can just go to download modules here, as you can see on the screen, and then it will give you a list. No, I don't want to update. Get out of here. Go to Bible English right here. A faithful version. Now, this one is really good, like you said, because, like Brother Yahusha said, because it uses Strong's with it. So you get the Strong's of the Greek New Testament with the Hebrew New Testament all in one module here in this translation. So you can see what these words actually mean. It's kind of like the King James with the Strong's, but I think a faithful version's a little bit better than the KJV.
It's because it has the morphology. Like if you actually click on it and then go to it, you'll see what I mean. Like it'll give you the Strong's link, but underneath the Strong's link, it'll give you the morphology link, which the morphology link is going to show you like, whether it's a noun, whether it's an adjective, the tense of the word, whether it's something that is like already happened or is happening. Like you see the green link underneath.
Yeah. Yeah, I can see what Brother Yahush is talking about here. Right here, you got the green under the blue part. So, say I go to this, like for H3068 Yahuwah here.
Jake will.
I can click on that, and then it takes it to the morphology, Hebrew, part of speech, noun. This is really good for stuff like eventually I want to do a study about about the garden, and was there a actual snake in the garden and all that. I think this would actually help explain to people about the word nakash and all that, because there are certain things in the Hebrew where it can have three different meanings in the Masoretic Hebrew. One's a noun definition, one's a verb, and one's an adjective. So that's where it gets confusing with certain Hebrew words, because from what I've been studying lately with the word nakash, it's like that. Like it can, as a verb, it means shining one. As I think a noun, it means serpent. So that's where it gets a little tricky with that. And so having something like this could help you out.
I'm not saying last night.
No problem. So anyway, but yeah, going back to what Brother Yahusha talked about, he gave us power to become children of Yahuwah. Like, again, does that mean we already are that physically at this point? No, because we can look at other prophecies. John can't contradict what the prophets before said. If you go to the book of Hosea, even it's a future event it's referring to, and it says, in that day, which is referring to the day of Yahuwah, in that day they will be called sons of the living Elohim. So I'm going to show you guys what I'm talking about here. So in the book of Hosea, right? Let's see here if I can find it really quick. Let's see here. Where is that in Hosea? I know Paul's quoting from it in Romans 9. Romans 9:26, he's quoting from it. Yeah. Okay. So And it shall be in the place where it was said to them, you are not my people. There they shall become sons of the living Elohim. So we got Hosea 1:10. You got Hosea 1:10. There's a couple other references. Let's see here. That's only references, huh? Okay. I could have swore there's a verse that actually says in that day. Okay. So Hosea 1:10. So it says here. All right, even if you just look at the context of the chapter here, okay, so it says, I shall have compassion on the house of Yehuda and save them by Yahuwah their Elohim, and not save them by bow or sword or battle, by horses or horsemen. That hasn't happened yet. And she weaned Lo Ruhamah and conceived and bore a son. And he said, call his name Lo Ami, for you are not my people, and I am not for you. Yet the number of the children of Yashar shall be as the sand of the sea, which again, I don't think we can claim today that's the case. Just through, basically a lot of Yashar being killed throughout the centuries and all that. I think this is clearly talking about the resurrection, in my opinion. Because think about it, there's a multitude in heaven, right? That can't be numbered. Okay. Yet the number of the children of Yashar shall be as the sand of the sea, which is not measured nor counted. Now, we can obviously say that it can be measured or counted at this moment. I don't think you can claim that that's right now. And it shall be in the place where it was says to them, you are not my people. It even says in the place. Where was it said to them, you're not my people? Obviously this message was given to Israel in Jerusalem at the time. Okay. So that means his people will have to be saved in Jerusalem when he gives eternal salvation. So it says it will be in the place that it was said to them, you are not my people. They shall, future, shall be called, you are the sons of the living Elohim. So again, a lot of people love to go with just to piggyback off of what Brother Yehusha said, a lot of people love using that 1 John verse out of context. First of all, John is not explicitly telling you what type of rebirth he's talking about, whether he's talking about the spiritual rebirth, which we have now. We are spiritually his children. We're not physically, genetically his children. So if John's talking about physically, genetically, he can't contradict with what Hosea is already saying. He can't contradict with what the prophets before him said. So clearly, and I always use this argument here, it says to become, future, to become his children. So there's still a future event that we haven't fully been adopted yet. We've been spiritually adopted, yes, in a essence of renewing our mind, like Brother Yehusha said. The first part has happened. We've become a new creation in Messiah spiritually. We have not become a new creation physically, like being born from above. Right? Yehusha says, well, you have to be born again. You have to be born from heaven, is the context he's talking about. None of us are physically born from heaven yet. What does it mean to be born from heaven? It means that you are being caught up, being given a new body. That has not happened yet to anyone. So whether you talk about the patriarchs, none of them have had that yet. This is why Paul says flesh and blood, physical flesh and blood. He's not talking about sin. He's talking about physical flesh and blood cannot inherit the kingdom. This is why Paul says that. And all these verses that you can find in the Brit Hadashah have the same theme. We are waiting for a physical rebirth to be with him forever, to be completely without sin.
I think it's time.
We need new bodies. So I just want to clarify again before, because I know some people, it seems like are confused with what I was trying to say. So I'm going to just clarify what I meant by, I probably shouldn't have used the word never because it confused people. Okay, what I meant by it was in this plane of existence as a mortal human, fallible humans, we will never be completely without sin. Now in the kingdom we will be, because we will no longer be humans. Yahusha says it himself. He says, you will be like the messengers. That's not a spiritual thing he's talking about. He's talking physical. He's talking about you will no longer be who you were. You will no longer be a being, a mortal being that's susceptible to death, that your body is susceptible to death. And, even the most healthy person on earth can't escape death. But because of the fall, we all have to die. The fall caused Yahuwah's creation of humankind to die. Yahuwah's original intent was for them to live forever with him, really.
Right.
When you see what Yahuwah wanted for Kua and Adam, he wanted us to be with him in the garden forever. That was his plan. But sin came in, fall happened. Now we inherit perishable bodies, sinful perishable bodies, that the only way to be with him forever is to put off corruption. 1 Corinthians 15, by the way. Okay, put off corruption, inherit incorruption. And when Paul is talking about corruption and incorruption, he's not talking spiritual. He's talking physical. He's talking about corruptible bodies, what we have, spiritual incorruptible bodies, what we're going to inherit, what's kept in heaven. That's why Kepha, I think, where's the mom? 1 Peter or 2 Peter? Talks about our inheritance is kept in heaven for us.
I think it's 2 Peter.
So these bodies that Yahuwah is eventually going to give us right now are in heaven with Yahuwah. He is going to give us resurrected bodies when he returns. And so, anyway, no, that's a good question. I just got a sister messaging me about what about cremation. Now, I want to say cremation is a tough topic, but I will say this. Yahuwah is all powerful and he's righteous, and his ways are higher than our ways. Even if we made the mistake, let's just say we messed up by cremating someone, right? That doesn't mean that they can't be resurrected somehow. He's outside of time, space, and matter, even though there's no such thing as space. I always use that terminology. He's outside of the laws that we live by on this terrestrial world. He can do whatever he wants. He can somehow bring a person back to life in a physical human body, even if they're cremated. He can do it. I mean, he has supernatural. Yahuwah is supernatural. He's the Almighty. He can do whatever he wants. So I'm not going to put a limit on Yahuwah and put him in a box that he couldn't bring someone back to life in their mortal human body when the resurrection happens just because they were cremated. I think Yahuwah is going to be doing that actually at the White Throne Judgment, because if you think about it, right, a lot of people drowned, a lot of people sharks or so anyway, so that's kind of what I wanted to clarify, because I know that cremation topic comes up a lot. I don't think that's outside of Yahuwah's being able to bring them back to physical life to judge them. He can. So I don't want to put Yahuwah in a box. I wouldn't be right for me to say that he can't do that, because quite frankly, Yahuwah gets mad when a human ever says that. He's like, don't, is my hand not strong enough to save? And is there anything I cannot do? Scripture says that. So I'm not going to put a limit on him. What I will say is probably not righteous to do that. It probably isn't righteous to cremate, in my personal opinion.
The thing about cremation is that it's done after a person dies, and they have no say-so about it. So you can't person for being cremated. It was their family that did it.
Yeah, but they might have left their wishes for it to be done too. I mean,
it depends, Mom.
Yeah, it depends.
Some do tell their family to do that, some don't. Some die like, and the family to save money will do it.
Right. True.
So it's a lot of the times it's a monetary thing, but I just don't think it's Yahuwah's will for someone to be cremated just because, the purpose is really for us to die so that our bodies are 6 feet under, so that when the resurrection happens, it's there for, to bring us back to physical life, to put our spirits back into our mortal bodies and bring us back to physical life. And then the dead in Messiah would be, raised and take on new bodies. So, and again, I'm not saying that Yahuwah can't do that if someone was cremated. I'm just saying that you're kind of playing Yahuwah at that point. Like, it's not really your decision to decide to, burn someone's body. When Yahuwah, we all belong to Yahuwah, whether we want to realize it or not. When he died for us on the stake, when Yahusha died for us on the stake, he owns our bodies. So that's just the way I look at it. You're kind of playing, at the minimum, you're playing Yahuwah at that point. It's kind of like the same thing where people want to keep people on a respirator, past a certain point to where they're really dead. They're kind of just, what is it called, Mom? They're just basically in a perpetual coma.
Most times they're brain dead, and and the machine is just really keeping them alive.
It's like I would say there's even a gray area with that where you're to a certain point where you can't even function. The person can't function anymore. It's just their brain isn't fully dead.
There's no chance of recovery.
Like there's no chance of recovery, and people will keep someone on a respirator forever.
Yeah.
And that's kind of like borderline to me. That's kind of like you're almost playing Yahuwah even at that point. So, that's just my personal opinion. I could be wrong, but that's just my personal opinion on it. But anyway, but I hope you guys enjoyed today's study. And like I always say, if we got any brothers and sisters out there looking for fellowship, please feel free to reach out. And all of that. So, and have a great rest of the Shabbat, of Yahuwah Shabbat, all those out there in Yahuwah Almighty Yahushua Messiah that are keeping Abba Shabbat today. Have a great rest of the Shabbat. And Yahuwah willing, see you next time.